The Hidden Secret in the Conversation with the Stars. Part 2. By Imam Fakhr al-Din al-Razi. Translation by Muhammad al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. The previous is necessitating that the existence of the result is contingent upon the existence of the cause, so that the impossibility of the former necessitates the impossibility of the latter. We have stated previously that the proof indicating the temporal origination of motion and stillness requires the temporal origination of bodies, and we have established that anything other than God, the Most High, is a temporal occurrence. Thus, if you acknowledge this, know that the absolute proof is indispensable for the confirmation of the first. The first proof is that the quiddity of motion implies a state preceded by another, which is essentially incompatible with the meaning of pre-eternity. For the meaning of pre-eternity is that which necessitates not being preceded by any other matter. Therefore, transition implies being preceded, and the essence of pre-eternity implies the negation of being preceded. Combining motion and pre-eternity is thus a combination of two contradictories. The second proof is the impossibility of a collection of non-existences having no beginning, such that those non-existences end in existence. For if all of them were actualized in pre-eternity, it would necessitate that the existent be obtained in pre-eternity, which is absurd. The third proof: did the existence of any temporal event occur in pre-eternity or not? If it occurred, then that which has no sovereign other than itself, meaning the eternal, is not preceded by another, while the temporal event is that which is preceded by non-existence. Thus, for the temporal to be eternal is a contradiction. And if nothing occurred in pre-eternity, then it is established that the temporal occurrence has a beginning. With this existence established, and the fact that the world is a temporal occurrence, the foundation of their speech is nullified. And if the foundation is nullified, all that they have constructed upon it is likewise nullified. And from God comes success. The second treatise from the Book of the Hidden Secret regarding this art, and it contains 18 chapters. The first chapter, on the experiential proofs, indicating that the stars are influential in this world. As for the great luminary, its influence on the upper and lower worlds is manifest. As for the upper world, one of the aspects is that God, glorified and exalted be He, has decreed the movements of the superior planets upon their epicycles to be such that the sum of their movements on their epicycles is equal to the movement of the centre of the sun. Thus, if the body of one of these planets is at the apogee of its epicycle, it is in conjunction with the sun, and if it is at the perigee of its epicycle, it is in opposition to the sun. As for the inferior planets, a movement occurs for them equaling the movement of the sun. If the planet is at the apogee of its epicycle, its movement is consistent with the movement of the sun. And if the centre of the epicycle is at the apogee, or the centre of the deferent, the movement of the two inferior planets is equal to the movement of the centre of the sun. And the movement of the centre of the epicycle and the deferent for the three superior planets is less than the movement of the sun, while the movement of the centre of the epicycle of the moon is faster than the movement of the sun. The second proof is that the moon increases or decreases due to its proximity to or distance from the sun. And many among the people claim that the lights of all the other planets are also borrowed from the sun. The third proof is that the sun, if it conceals the rays of the planets by its brilliance, their effects in the lower world are hidden. As for its influence on the lower world, the first of them is that I hold that all animals in the night are as if dead. Yet when the light of the morning rises, the species of living creatures appear and become manifest. It is as if the light of the sun has breathed the spirit of life into the bodies of the animals. And since the rising of the sun is the cause of the manifestation of the power of life in the bodies. Indeed, the dispositions of mankind and the rest of the animals are dependent upon its motion and its existence. Thus, as the sun ascends toward the middle of the sky, their movement and vigour begin to stir. Yet as the sun inclines toward the west, weakness and lethargy begin to move within them. This weakness continues to increase, as does the fading of light, until the sun sets, and that weakness and lethargy return. Bodies grow still and frail, and the animal faculties retreat to their inner springs, resembling the state of the dead. Then, when the sun rises upon them on the following day, they return to the first state of life and the capacity for motion. The second aspect regarding the benefits of the sun is that it is moving. For, were it to remain fixed in a single locus, the heat would intensify in that specific place until it burned, while the remaining regions would be enveloped by the cold until nothing could live therein. Yet it rises in the east and falls in the west. It ceases not to revolve and cover direction after direction until it reaches the west, shining upon the sides of the earth close and far. No place remains exposed in the east or west, but that it takes a share of the sun's rays. As for the south and the north, it has made its movement inclined from the sphere of the equator. For, were it not for the sun's movement having an inclination, it would have been a single season. The sun's effect would have been upon a single path eternally, and the other regions would have been devoid of benefits. There would have been no summer, no winter, no spring, and no autumn. If the sun were to remain upon a single quality, the vegetation would not ripen, for its ripening depends upon the quality of burning heat, while its dimension depends upon the quality of cold, and the intermediate state between them depends upon the quality of warmth. Thus, were it in the position of winter therein, the growth and vegetation would freeze, and were it in the position of summer therein, that which is in it would burn. And were it to remain upon the quality of spring or autumn, the ripening would not be completed. Also, were the sun to return successive times, it would move in a slow movement. But the benefit of this inclination is little, and the influence is severe. Therefore, its movement was faster than this, so that the benefits might manifest without death occurring. But if there was a declination there preserving the movement, then it moves after a period to another direction, according to the measure of need, and it remains in every direction for a portion of time. And the effect is not completed by that, but its benefit is manifold. The third aspect concerning the benefits of the sun is that every place where the sun is exceedingly far from the zenith, the cold therein intensifies, such as the two positions which are the poles. No plants grow therein, nor animals. It is night there for 6 months, and day for 6 months, and the winds there are tempestuous. This is indicated by the northern sea, for it is closer to the orbit of the sun than the aforementioned location. Yet, despite that, the winds intensify therein, the storms are severe, and the darkness is extreme. It is not possible to sail upon it due to the intensity of its cold and its darkness. Evidence is found in the Levantine Sea, for when the sun is in the 1st degrees of Scorpio until it reaches the 1st of Aquarius, in these 4 months, the people are unable to sail upon it. The fourth aspect, inductive reasoning, indicates that the cause for the differences among people in their bodies, colours and characters is the variation in the states of the sun regarding movement. That is because people are of 3 sections. One of them consists of those who dwell at the equator line up to the proximity of the Tropic of Cancer. They are termed by the general name the Blacks, al-Sudan. For the sun passes over the summits of their heads twice in the year, or 2 times passes near them, and their bodies blacken and their hair burns. And they represent the general populace of the blacks, for the sun burns their hair and blackens their bodies, making their hair peppercorn-like and rendering their faces ugly due to the intensity of its influence on their dwelling places. As for their nature, it is savagery. As for those whose dwellings fall near the Tropic of Cancer, like the head of India and parts of Yemen, they are less extreme, and their natures are more balanced, and their bodies are halfway described. And the second division consists of those whose dwellings are adjacent to the Tropic of Cancer, up to the proximity of the Great Bear. They are termed by the general name the Whites. For the sun does not pass over the summits of their heads, nor is it far from them by a great distance, such that the cold would affect them heavily. Thus their colours became intermediate, and the proportions of their bodies became balanced. Their characters and morals are good, such as the people of China, the Turks, Khorasan, Iraq, and the Persians. The people of the Levant are among them. Whoever is inclined towards the southern direction is more complete in intelligence and understanding due to their proximity to the zodiac and the passage of the wandering stars, planets. Their movements are befitting of the movements of the stars in speed and slowness. And he who inclines toward the eastern side is stronger of soul and intensified in formation. For the eastern quadrant is the quadrant of the heavens, for the star rises from its side, and the lights appear from its side first, and the right is stronger than the left. And whosoever is on the western side, then distinctiveness is weaker within them, and they are more persistent, yet movement is slower for matters. This is because this direction is attributed to the moon, and it is the wont of the moon that its appearance occurs after concealment. And the third section, those whose dwellings are adjacent to the orbits of the bears, Ursa Major Minor, such as the Slavs and the Russians. Due to their great distance from the path of the zodiac and the heat of the sun, the cold overcame them, and dampness prevailed over their colours. Thus whiteness dominates their colours, and dampness their bodies. Their hair is lank and reddish. Their bodies are soft, and their natures incline towards stupidity. Their characters are wild. Know that each of these 2 paths, the first and the 7th, is devoid of civilization. And civilization is interrupted in some of them due to the dominance of one of the 2 qualities, extreme heat or cold. Then civilization continues to increase in the 2nd climb, the 3rd and the 4th, while it decreases in the 5th. As for the 4th climb, it is the foundation of civilizations, with few wastelands. That is due to the excellence of the middle path over the extremes. O balanced one of temperament! All of these considerations indicate a manifest sign that the conditions of this world are linked to the states of the sun. And the 4th division, which is written in the balance, concerns the positions which the sun aligns with. These are divided into 2 parts. One is the place of the perigee, and the other is near the earth. The result of these positions is the southern cold, which is a burning power wherein no animals can form. As for the lands close to those positions, their inhabitants are all black of colour due to burning, and their skins succumb to the air, which burns due to its proximity to the sun. As for the positions aligned with the sun on the northern side, they are not burnt, but rather temperate. Then the resultant disparity due to its proximity or distance from the sun is not great but slight. Thus the occurrence of that proximity is slight. The southern side became burnt, as we have learned by this, that were the sun to become part of the sphere of the fixed stars, the natural dispositions would be corrupted by the intensity of the cold, and were it to descend to the sphere of the moon, this world would have burned completely. Thus the Creator, exalted be his praise and magnified be his greatness, placed the sun in the middle of the 7 planets so that the existent things might be. Nature remains close to the limit of equilibrium in this world. As for the people of the first clime, the proximity of the sun to the position directly overhead is such that its heating of them is intense. Hence, the people of the first clime are characterized by extreme blackness, for the sun burns them. The people of the second clime are similar in colour. As for the third and fourth climes, they are the fairest of the climes, and their atmosphere is the most temperate. The sun is only directly overhead for them at a specific time, or not at all, and its distance from them follows a balanced measure. Thus the air does not burn, nor do the forms and images deviate from moderation. As for the fifth clime, the heat of the air therein is less than that of the temperate zone by a significant measure, such that the cold becomes dominant and snows and ice appear. The natures of its inhabitants have departed from the temperament of the people of the fourth clime, though only by a distance less than the departure of the first clime from moderation. As for the people of the sixth and seventh climes, their air is wintry, and due to the prevalence of cold and moisture upon them, their colours have become white, their eyes blue, and their bodies large. It has been made clear that the differences in the characters of mankind, their forms and their colours, arise from the variation in the states of the sun regarding proximity and distance. As for the difference in the natures of people regarding their characters and ethics, indeed the people of the savage lands, such as those of India and the Negro lands, possess characters in which they do not engage in reflection, nor do they weary themselves in the pursuit of the mathematical sciences. This is not found among the people of the other climes. Likewise, the characters of the Maghreb do not resemble the characters of the people of the East. The fourth aspect. There is no doubt that the sun is the cause for the generation of plants and the ripening of fruits. However, the seasons are 4 only due to the movement of the sun's sphere. This is the path for the origin of the occurrence of these things. The fifth aspect, regarding the influence of the sun on plants, this is also evident. As for the daily movement, do you not see that the sweet basil, which is called the Nilufar, water lily, and the Azarian, calendula, and the leaves of the castor plant grow and increase upon the rising of the sun, increasing in elevation and ascent? Yet when the sun sets, they weaken and wither. Also, crops and plants do not grow except in the places upon which the sun shines and to which its power reaches. Also, the existence of certain plants in some lands and not others has no cause other than the variation of lands in heat and cold. Thus, the citron, the lemon, and the almond do not grow in the cold lands, nor do they grow in the very hot lands. Likewise, the date palm does not grow in the cold lands. In the first clime, the kana and the Indian pepper grow, which do not grow in the southern lands, nor beyond the equator. Trees and herbs grow there which are known nowhere else. As for the animals, their condition differs in their generation, due to the difference in the heat of the lands and their coldness. Thus, the elephant and the rhinoceros exist in the land of India and are not seen in the other climes which are below it in heat. Likewise, the musk gazelle and the sable are found in some of the lands wherein the heat is most intense, such as the lands of India. For the elephant is found in the rest of the southern lands, such as the land of the Sudan, as it is the greatest of bodies and the longest of life. As for the coagulation of mineral bodies, stones and metals, we know that the cause therein is the vapours generated within the belly of the earth, due to the influence of the sun. When those vapours are confined in the caverns of the mountains and the sun affects them, metals are generated. As for the rains and the rest of the celestial effects, there is no doubt that their generation is by the power of the sun. As for the moon, it also has a mighty influence in this world. They have said, if the influence of the sun affects heat and cold, the influence of the moon affects moisture and dryness. And if the sun influences the east and west, the moon implies heat, and at the time of distance implies cold. But the state of the moon concerning moisture and dryness is that which indicates it. We have mentioned several considerations. One of them is that the people of experience said that the waters of the seas take to increasing from the time the moon separates from the sun until the time of repletion, full moon. Then they take to decreasing after the repletion. This decrease continues, according to the waning of the moon's light, until it reaches its limit at the conjunction new moon. Then it begins to increase once more. This is the state of the first tide, which occurs in the tide and flow of every day and night, with the rising of the moon and its setting. This is present in the Sea of Fars, the Sea of India, and what borders China. Likewise, it is consistent in the Sea of China and its nature. When the moon rises in the east in those seas, the sea begins to flow, and it ceases not to do so until the moon comes to the middle of the sky of that location. At that point, the tide reaches its limit. Then, when the moon declines from the middle of the sky, the water recedes, and the ebb ceases not to do so until the moon reaches the western horizon at that location. Then the flow begins again for the second time, and the water ceases not to increase until the moon reaches the peg of the earth, the nadir. Then the tide reaches its limit in the second time. Then the water begins to return again to the ebb until the moon reaches the eastern horizon of that location, and the state returns, as mentioned once more. And because the earth is spherical, and the sea surrounds it in its circularity, and the moon rises upon all of it in the measure of a day and a night, whenever the moon moves from the position of the east for one location, it becomes the position of the west for another location, and the middle of the sky for another, and the peg of the earth, nadir, for another. Thus, these pegs rotate upon every condition. Therefore, there occurs in the sea varying states, unorganized and confused. And know that the inhabitants of the sea invariably see that at the time of the moon's transition, there is a stirring of violent winds and crashing waves. They know that at the beginning of the flow, whenever the wind blows, the waves swell and the ships are destroyed. As for the inhabitants of the shores and coasts, they find concerning themselves at the time of the flow, which acts from the bottom to the top, that when the water returns and descends, there is destruction. The second consideration is that we see within the bodies of animals that at the time of the increase of the moon's light, the blood becomes stronger and hotter, and after the repletion, full moon, it becomes weaker and colder. And the humour which is in the body of man, as long as the moon is increasing, it is greater, and the exterior of the body is moister and fairer. But if the light of the moon decreases, those humours retreat into the depth of the body, and the veins and the exterior of the body increase in dryness. The third consideration is the variation in the states of animals. The days of their cycles vary based on the increase of the moon's light and its decrease. Physicians have written on this. The fourth consideration: we see that as long as the moon is in the light, the milk in the udders increases and thickens, and when the moon begins to decrease, its milk slows and does not thicken. And the milk of animals at the beginning of the month is less than as long as the moon is increasing in light. When the moon decreases, its abundance decreases, and it does not thicken. Likewise, the brains of animals are greater at the beginning of the month than they are at the end of the month. Indeed, the eggs of animals are fuller at the beginning of the month than at the end of the month. The fifth consideration is regarding the yolk of the egg. It differs according to the state of the moon. The single yolk varies if it is above the horizon in the eastern quarter, for the yolk increases. The brain of the animal increases, and your proof of that is in the sides of the sea, at that time of the day and night. When the moon is absent from them, they suffer a deficiency. These considerations appear manifestly upon inductive examination. We have shown that the branches, or indeed the trunks, if cut during the waning of the moon, decay rapidly violently in their essence. And if the meat of animals is placed exposed under the light of the moon, its taste changes and its odour turns foul. The fifth CC is that one finds the fish in the seas and the flowing waters if it is from the beginning of the month to the repletion full moon. They emerge from their holes and from the depths of the seas and thickets, and their fat is greater. But after the repletion until the conjunction new moon, they withdraw into their holes and diminish. Even the ants in their hills, if the moon is coming towards the middle of the sky, they emerge seeking nourishment. When the moon is at the zenith, they are at the height of activity. And likewise, the crab on the shore, its crawling out from its hole in the first half of the month, is more frequent than its crawling out in the second half of the month. The sixth is the planting and sowing. If the moon is increasing in light coming towards the middle of the sky, they catch and grow and quicken. But if it is decreasing in light, declining from the middle of the sky, it is the opposite. That is why the herbs and legumes, such as the pumpkin, the cucumber, the melon, and the gourd, grow more at the increase of the light. As for in the middle of the month, the attainment of repletion is there. There's a perceptible disparity in that between the single night. And likewise, regarding springs and fountains, they bubble forth in the first half of the month and decrease in the second. All of this is known. The masters of metals and their wealth say, "We take the planet if it happens to be in conjunction with another, or combust, or otherwise." They say, "We do not see an effect for that on the day of the conjunction or the combustion." So if the moon is falling in influence at the time of combustion or conjunction with a part of the conjunction or combustion, we do not see an effect in our world. This invalidates these considerations of the influence of the two luminaries in this world. Know that the influence of the moon was only an influence in this world for three reasons. The first is its proximity to this world. The second is that the movements of the moon are swift and its changes are many. Thus, the other planets, their movements are slow, and the changes of this world are many. So the reliance of the changes of this world is upon the proximal principle, which is the moon. As for that which indicates the appearance of influences from the other planets, there are several aspects. One of them is that we see the difference in the states of the climes. Therein is summer and winter, one colder than another. If we investigate the disparity, we find no cause for that except the proximity of the sun to a hot planet such as Mars, or a cold one, and otherwise. Likewise, the saying regarding winter. The second is the inductive reading of the judgments of the stars. We have found that their influence in this world regarding lust, passion, and intercourse occurs when we see Mars and Venus in Pisces, and the moon between them, or in Taurus, or when the moon is in Cancer and Venus is in Taurus, or the moon is in the position of Venus in some of the aforementioned places, providing that one of the two malefics, Saturn or Mars, does not behold them. And it is agreed between them, the astrologers, regarding experience, which is tested among people, that whosoever marries and the moon is in Virgo, or the palm, or Scorpio, and Mars faces it, or quarters it, or Saturn faces it, or meets it in some of the aforementioned places, or Jupiter falls from it, then that connection will be extremely harmful, and the harm between the spouses will be great. And we find from inductive reasoning regarding the conditions that whosoever wishes for the natural power to be strengthened by the power of the moon and its weakness to be diminished, let him read the connections of Venus in the tower of the bull, Taurus. And let him use the fragrances which are customary to use, provided that the conditioning of the moon does not cease. And whosoever puts a placement, and there is no aspect therein, or establishes a belief, and indeed, if a habit has become established, let him pluck the hair from the pubis. For that which is plucked on that day cannot be estimated except with severe pain, nor is it possible to pluck all of what occurs by custom. The plucking of hair on such a day, and whosoever drinks on that day of the purgative medicines, which are customary, it will not be easy for him as a remedy for 20 sessions. Indeed, he will not find ease for that day a path, but rather less than that. And all of that is because the natural power is at the height of strength due to the power of the moon being in an individual honour and its existence with Venus. When the natural power is strengthened, it prevents the humours from dissolution. Likewise, if Jupiter is in Cancer, and the moon is coupled with it, look, you will find nature there at the height of strength, so that the medicine which sits in other than that time will not sit in that time, i.e., will not settle or work, but rather vomits 5 times or less. And with this there is no benefit. Nothing of that medicine is absorbed, nor does it occur in the stomach, nor pain. Also, whosoever sows a crop or plants a tree while the moon is in Capricorn or Aquarius or Scorpio, and the moon is opposite to Saturn, and Jupiter does not behold it, it will not bear fruit and will not grow. Or he does not achieve that which is sown a beginning. And whosoever takes a fragrance, and the moon is near Saturn, or connects with a malefic from some of the houses of the malefics, and does not behold Venus, and Venus is of no power, then for that perfume there will be no scent, nor will the intended purpose be achieved from it. And by contrast, if the moon is connected to Venus, it will be accepted, and Venus in Libra. So, by these considerations and their like, the necessity of the manifestation of influences in this world is established via the specific directions of these planets and their connections. Thus, whosoever wishes to perform a specific work must be encompassingly knowledgeable of the natures of these individual planets and their compounds, so that he is not disappointed in his knowledge and his endeavour is not lost. The second chapter, regarding the doubt concerning whether the influence of the planets in this world is of the category of the necessary, the impossible, or the contingent. The people of the first likeness, determinists, said, If the decree is necessary, then it is impossible to avoid, so there is no benefit in taking caution against it, nor is there benefit in using indicants for the remaining of the possible. So we say, if the occurrence of the contingents of this world were not dependent upon the movements of the planets, these contingents would have become either necessary or impossible, and the division of possibility would be lifted. However, the saying that the division of possibility is lifted is false. It indicates that the first way is that man is empowered to perform the good and the evil which is upon him. If the occurrence of what occurs of actions were necessary due to the attainment of the celestial causes, or impossible due to the cause of the occurrence of its celestial causes, or the power of the active agent, or the receptivity of the passive recipient. As for the third objection, that the utility of thought and deliberation would be nullified, the answer is that were it not for possibility, man would not reflect upon anything, nor would anyone purpose to do or leave undone a single thing. Thus the utility of thought would indeed be nullified. But were it not for possibility, neither praise nor blame, neither encouragement nor intimidation would have any reality. And just as the knowledge that these conditions are necessitated by the movements of the stars does not annul the influence of the stars in their governance, so too, if this is acknowledged, it does not annul the utility of the science of judicial astrology. For let it be known that the acknowledgment of all obligations and the sending of the prophets, peace be upon them, is of no avail, according to the argument of the Muslims, if one considers that God, the Exalted, already knows all that is known. Thus, what God, the Exalted, knows will occur must necessarily occur, and what he knows will not occur is impossible to occur. Yet the necessity of the occurrence of actions, or their impossibility, did not prevent the sending of the prophets, nor the imposition of obligations. And the rebuttal of this objection is the same as mentioned before, that acts proceed through causes, and God has willed that human actions be contingent upon the occurrence of intentions in the heart and the emergence of those intentions into the realm of causality. And in the end, matters must lead back to celestial causes which influence thought, consultation, and seeking. This is also the determined measure of the doubts raised by those who impugn the science of judicial astrology. They have said, there is no path to the knowledge of the natures of the zodiacal signs and the stars and their intermingling save by experience. And the minimum required in experience is that a thing occurs in a specific state twice. However, this is impossible here, for the celestial sphere, if it assumes a specific configuration, does not return to the likes of that configuration, save after thousands of years. The span of known lifetimes is not sufficient for this, and the histories that record these periods do not connect one to another continuously. Thus, there is no way to the knowledge of these conditions through experience. The answer is that there is no need in experience for what you have mentioned. It suffices that we witness a single event at a specific time, and there is no doubt that at that time there exists a configuration for each of the stars relative to one another. Then it is known that this event occurred subsequent to this configuration. If we observe such a configuration again, even if the celestial position occurs only once, it is not impossible for us to know that such an event happens due to this star. Therefore, one pursues the method of acquiring this knowledge. If afterward the position returns as a planet returns to its place, and we see the first event or a similar event recur, we know that the occurrence of that event was indeed due to the being of that planet in that position. if it happens that the other planets act jointly in that position to produce that event, and knowledge is attained by this method through experience, then knowledge is achieved that the influence upon the event is due to such and such planet being in such and such zodiacal sign. Then it is established that returning to experience in this chapter is not impossible. The third suspicion, that the rulings of astrology are built upon the knowledge of the degree of the star, and obtaining this knowledge is impossible, for the instruments of observation contain many errors. For this reason, we have found the position of a star, according to some ephemerides, to be a specific degree, while, according to another ephemeris, it is in that degree, or in a completely different degree. And there is no way to stand upon the truth of the matter. Furthermore, the masters of ephemerides are tolerant in seconds and thirds, which, with the passing of time, become degrees, leading to the position of the star becoming unknown to the singular observer. Thus, the rulings based upon these variations become confused. The answer is that the discrepancy that occurs in the positions of the stars reaching a degree, nay, being within degrees, and experience indicating that this does not prevent the validity of judicial astrology, compels the dominance of the suspicion. Or consider the conditions which you claim suggest that the conditions of the stars indicate their occurrences. Either they say it is inevitable, or it is not inevitable. If you assert certainty, they say there is no benefit in predicting it, for cautioning against what is known to be inevitable is of no use. And if it is an evil, predicting it is merely the acceleration of sorrow and fear. And that which belongs to what is not desired by a rational mind is futile. This was said by some of their orators in disparaging this science. Its universals are unavoidable, and its particulars are unknown, and there is no utility in it except expectation and delaying them. The answer is that the conjunctions are preparatory causes, not efficient causes. And relying upon earthly causes is similar to this, for just as the efficient causes require the receptivity of the passive recipients, so too does the astrologer inform of the occurrence of the celestial conjunctions, which are like the active causes. Thus, if there is a striving in the earthly passive recipients to achieve the product, the result is attained. And if there is a striving to repel the earthly impediments so that it does not occur, then upon my life I see this as distinguishably clearer than the actions of sailors and farmers. Do they not know that although the time implies that the sea is turbulent and the air corrupting, yet they guard themselves against riding the sea and refrain from agriculture? Even if they knew the nature of the time, they would prepare instruments suitable for that action, for they occupy themselves with that work, so that they might benefit. And the learned physicians, who know the natures of the seasons and their requirements, prepare foods and medicines appropriate to those seasons, specializing in elements of their essence. And those who have experience with the times of rainfall seek shelter before the descent of the rain in places that protect them from the rain, or they clothe themselves in garments that shield them from it. And despite knowing that it has been ordained, they did not cease waiting for it to occur, nor did they busy themselves with what would prevent that evil or attract that good. People benefit from the critique of the knowledge of the physicians, for they know the times suitable for the administration of medicines and the times usually appropriate for foods. They prescribed a rule for each season, and all of this is because of their knowledge of what they know. Thus, this implies that the astrologer, if he knows that the nature of the star in such and such zodiacal sign necessitates such and such food, or implies that such and such will be an evil, creates a readiness for it. And if it is an evil, he occupies himself with preparing the repelling causes. For we know that the sun creates the summer and heats the air. Thus the repelling causes for the heat are prepared. And we also know that the sun creates the winter and cools the air. Thus the repelling causes for the cold are prepared. Since earthly occurrences are dependent upon the movements of the stars, occupying oneself with obtaining the repulsive measures against what is necessitated by the movements of the celestial and earthly spheres in this estimation is not unfitting for the science of the stars. The answer also is that we say, if this speech implies that occupying oneself with this science is futile, because God the Exalted knows who is of the people of happiness and who is of the people of wretchedness, and he has decreed all matters. And if you say that since his knowledge of your being among the people of wretchedness or happiness is antecedent, there is no benefit in obedience, then the permission for all sins is lawful. It implies that one should not occupy oneself with nourishment to sustain the soul and bear hardship and turn away from pleasure. It implies that one should not occupy oneself with food with the excuse that God, the Exalted, already knows who will be satiated and who will not. Thus, there is no need for eating. And if his knowledge that he will not be satiated implies it will not be, then occupying oneself with eating is futile. Every manager of affairs relies upon this estimation, yet it is necessary that he ventures upon it. And since this speech is false, then what they have said regarding the resemblance is corrupt. They said, this science contains many principles and numerous branches, and the ambiguity of the proofs and the contradictions of the results. As for the abundance of principles, we mention one example, that among the greatest of principles for them are the ascendants of the planetary conjunctions. Yet they were unable to know the ascendants of the conjunctions, so they made the turning of the solar year stand in the place of the ascendant of the conjunction. And this goes on such that the ascendant of the year in which a human is born is taken to stand in the place of the ascendant of the birth of the human. And it is known that the difference is extreme. As for the abundance of branches, so-and-so wants to judge upon a newborn on a single day, and he is in need of 1,000 proofs. And most of the time, if he wanted to extract a cure from 1,000 types of medicines for a malady present within him, he would be unable to combine and compound them. So how can the astrologer be in need of considering these proofs, which are overwhelmingly many, arising from calculation and knots? And as for the weakness of the proofs, the judgment regarding this world is likening something in a form or a quality. And it is known that the mere resemblance is among the weakest of proofs. As for their inconsistency of results, so-and-so among them judged for the occurrence of Saturn in the house of wealth as an indication of poverty, and another among them said it indicates wealth. And we find that the two sayings are contradictory. The answer to all that you have mentioned is conceded, except that all of this does not necessitate the abandonment of the famous principles which the masters hold fast to from the Book of God, the Exalted, and they claimed that it indicates the corruption of this science. Among them is the saying of the Exalted, "Verily, with God is the knowledge of the hour, and he sends down the rain, and he knows what is in the wombs." 31:34. This verse indicates that the knowledge of these things is not attained save by God, the Exalted. So the claim that the astrologer is acquainted with these things is contrary to this verse. And from this, the world of the unseen does not become manifest to anyone except the possessor of the worlds, or whom he pleases from his messengers. The answer regarding the whole is that we say, the purely unseen is not with the astrologer regarding the craft of judicial astrology. It is not knowledge, but rather surmise, zan, which errs and strikes the mark. And regarding this, it is not outside the verse. Chapter 3. On the rectification of the chapters of the science of the stars. Know that the inquiry into this science is disciplined in matters. One of them is the inquiry into the zodiacal signs regarding their essences and what is calculated by their analogy to the horizon, which is named the houses. Then the inquiry regarding these zodiacal signs and the houses may be an inquiry regarding each one of them singly, or it may be according to the analogy of each one of them to the other. The second is the inquiry regarding the conditions of the stars and what resembles the stars, such as the head and the tail of the dragon, the lunar nodes, and the part of fortune. And the third is the inquiry regarding the conditions of the stars either in the zodiacal signs entirely, or in parts of the zodiacal signs such as the term and the face. And among them are those who did not derive it from the mixing of proofs, and these are like arrows and other matters. And its fifth aspect is the search for the causes of the degrees and their natures. And we select for each one of these matters a separate chapter. Chapter 4. Regarding the division of the celestial sphere into 12 signs and the reason for beginning, middle, and end. Since there are 3 causes for the division of the sphere was divided into 12 parts, and each part was named a sign, Burj. The second cause is that the 2 luminaries, whenever they were manifested in this world, their effect was witnessed, and in the duration of 1 rotation of the sun, 12 conjunctions occur with the moon. Thus they divided the sphere into 12 parts, calling each part a month, or rather they called the period between each conjunction to the next a month, or essentially what we have mentioned. Abu al-Mashar mentioned this, and it is exceedingly constrained. The philosophers said, since the 4 pillars, elements, are fire, air, water, and earth, and that which is generated from them are the 3 conditions, the beginning, the middle, and the end. The total becomes 12. So they calculated this number according to the signs. Thus, the first division is the fiery signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, and these indicate the condition of the pillars' elements. The second division is the earthy signs, which serve as the beginning, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. The third division is the airy signs, which represent the middle condition, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. The fourth division is the watery signs, indicating the final condition, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Therefore, the first division signifies the beginning of formation, which is the tempering of the heat necessary for the commencement of existence. The second division signifies the establishment of the formation upon a singular state, which is the mediation between coldness and dryness, leading to the solidification of all things. The third division indicates the movement of the formation and the soul within it, leading to the manifestation of the senses. The fourth division signifies the dissolution of the composite and its passing away, due to the prevalence of moisture which corrupts the forms. The people of the trade, astrologers, distinguished between those that signify the inception of existence, which are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, indicating the fiery nature, for fire acts upon the face of the earth. And Sagittarius indicates the temperate earthy nature pointing towards existence, and applies to every clay nature where plants move within it. The bull, Taurus, indicates the cold and dry earthy nature, which implies the contraction of moderation, and applies to every clay nature where plants do not grow. As for the Gemini, its nature indicates heat and moisture, pointing towards the generation and existence, and applies to every soft breeze, which is a temperate moisture wherein the persons of animals and plants grow. The scales, Libra, indicates the airy nature intermediate between heat and cold, or indicates the corrupting airy nature which is a spoiler explicitly destructive to animals, and applies to every vapour and wind from which occurs decay, suffocation and regression, and the cessation of growth and similar things. As for Cancer, its fire indicates coldness and moisture, indicating generation and decay, and applies to every sweet water which serves as nourishment for animals. Scorpio indicates coldness and moisture that deviates from moderation, and applies to every water whose taste is altered by salinity or bitterness, offering little benefit in food. As for the whale Pisces, it indicates the corrupting coldness and moisture, destructive to animals and plants, and applies to every stagnant bitter water from which no benefit is derived whatsoever. This is the reasoning for making the signs 12 in number and their division into the 4 triplicities based on what Abu al-Mashar mentioned. Chapter 5. Regarding what the philosophers and the people of the trade agreed upon regarding the natures of the signs. Especially since the bodies of the celestial spheres are neither hot nor cold, neither moist nor dry, nor do they seek to combine these philosophical matters with natural inquiries. They stated that they, the spheres, are not inherently hot, but they influence the generation of heat and warmth. Thus, in this interpretation, they said concerning these signs that they are hot and cold. Then they stated, heat is superior to coldness, and dryness is superior to moisture. They therefore made the beginning with Aries, making the first triplicity hot and dry, the second cold and dry, the third hot and moist, and the fourth cold and moist. They arranged them according to this order, making 2 signs dry and 2 signs moist. Based on this arrangement, the last of the signs became watery. Then they said, the fiery dry sign is attributed to whatever resembles it in this world, which is the element of fire from the elements, and the yellow bile from the humours. The earthy, dry, cold sign is attributed to the earth and black bile. The hot, moist, airy sign is attributed to the air and blood. The cold, moist, watery sign is attributed to water and phlegm. So they did this. They said Aries, Leo and Sagittarius are fiery, Taurus, Virgo and Capricorn are earthy, Gemini, Libra and Aquarius are airy, and Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces are watery. Thus the fiery signs are hot and dry, the earthy signs are cold and dry, the airy signs are hot and moist, and the watery signs are cold and moist. A group of philosophers challenged this school of thought from several angles. The first is that the variation in parallel things regarding their logical implications and differences implies a difference in their essences. It necessarily follows that the celestial sphere would be composite, not simple, and this is false by consensus of the philosophers. Or, if these signs were uniform and consistent in their quiddity, then the state of the planets in each sign would be like their state in any other, such that the effects of the planets would not differ due to their descent into these signs. And since the influences differ, the judgment necessitates that those signs are different in their quiddities. This requires that the sphere be composite, and the sages deny this. They said, the proof that the sphere is simple is that if it were composite, it would be prone to dissolution. And if dissolution were possible, then correct motion in a straight line would be impossible, for direction would be limited to it. Yet this is contrary to what has been said, that it is impossible for the adherents of the sphere to prevent it from being of a single quiddity among those simple bodies. This requires that its surface be smooth. If we concede that the latter body, the sphere, is smooth, then straight motion upon the parts of the sphere is impossible. And we have conceded as a witness that it is impossible regarding the first sphere, which is the body of the limiting direction. As for the other spheres inclined towards the greatest sphere, which has no limited direction, there is no proof for you that they do not accept straight motion. The second objection is that this arrangement is invalid because it is appropriate to begin with fire, then air, then water, then earth, according to the arrangement of the strata of the elements. The third objection is that the sun is at the extremity of heat. When it occurs in a sign, it is necessary that it strengthens the heat, and if it occurs in a watery sign, it is necessary that the heat weakens. But in the fiery signs, it is necessary that it strengthens the heat to the utmost. Yet the matter is contrary to that, for if the sun, were in Aries, the heat would be weak, but if it occurred in Sagittarius, the heat would be at the utmost weakness. But when it occurred in Cancer, which is a watery sign, it is the cause of intense heat. The fourth objection is that their arrangement implies that the strata of the elements are suitable, contiguous, for every element has two qualities. One is strong and the other is weak. That which neighbours it is the one that shares with it in the weak quality, not the strong one. For example, fire is hot and dry. Its heat is stronger than its dryness. And that which is beside it is air, which is hot and moist. So the air shares with the fire in its quality, which matches it in heat. But as for this arrangement of the zodiac, it is not suitable. For the last of each triplicity is a watery sign, and the first of the second triplicity is a fiery sign, and these are opposites. For Cancer is cold and moist, and Leo is hot and dry, and combining opposites without any unifying bond is rejected by reason. The fifth objection is that the populace claimed that spring is hot and moist, resembling the age of childhood and the nature of blood. Summer is hot and dry, resembling the age of youth and the nature of yellow bile. Autumn is cold and dry, resembling the age of maturity and the nature of black bile. And winter is cold and moist, resembling the age of old age and the nature of phlegm. This arrangement is agreed upon among the sages, the physicians, and those of natural sensation. And since this is established, we say, if we claim the nature of this sign is a fiery nature, we do not mean that the sign in itself is fiery. Rather, we say that the spheres represent a fifth nature. Indeed, we mean its effect in this world is of this quality. Thus, if the effect of the signs in this world is this quality, I mean heat, moisture, coldness and dryness, and the philosophers have judged that they are hot and moist, and the zodiac triplicities are summer-like, hot and dry. Established by this is that the arrangement they mentioned regarding the rulings is established upon the opposite of what is reasonable. And it is not said, we know the natures of the signs by experience, because we say, experience indicates only that which is known by the proof of reason. As for that which reason does not permit to indicate against what the proofs have established, the reasoning intellect cannot rely upon it. And this precise point requires understanding from its knowledge. The sixth objection is that the union between dissimilar things is closer in reason than the union between different things. And since the thing which begins with warmth is weak at first, indistinguishable, then it strengthens, then it weakens until it reaches the limit of completion. If we made Aries indicate the beginning of heat, and Leo its middle, and Sagittarius its limit, logic would necessitate that the union be in these triplicities connected one to another. So it would begin firstly with Aries, then with Leo, then with Sagittarius. As for the separation between the beginning, the middle, and the end by a single nature, and the casting of opposites in between, this is contrary to reason. The answer regarding the first aspect, which is their statement, this implies the sphere is composite, follows that this is not necessary. For the beginning is divided from the point of the equinox, which is drawn and fixed, and the sphere is greatest, so it is possible that there exists in the body of the sphere nothing greater than the point of the spring equinox, to the completion of 30 degrees, a small star that necessitates coldness and dryness. And based on this estimation, it does not necessitate the composition of the sphere. As for the other aspects mentioned regarding the refutation of the validity of this composition and arrangement, and I have mentioned that the possessors of the stars, astrologers, have no way to prove this composition and arrangement. And since I have strengthened for them an argument that is stronger than all they have mentioned, despite the acknowledgement that their impact is from the observed conventions, iknaiyat, not the certain logical paths. This path is built upon premises. The first, there is no doubt that the Sun, when it occupies the summer quadrant of the sphere, which is from Cancer to Libra, the heat strengthens and the summer manifests. The limit of this heat and its strength in this quadrant is only when the Sun occupies the middle sign of the 3 signs that constitute this quadrant, because the middle is guarded by likeness, being strongest, and the 2 ends are guarded by difference, being weaker. So we are certain by this meaning that Leo is a hot, dry sign. The second premise: it is necessary that hot qualities or cold qualities do not follow one another purely, nor purely moist and dry qualities, because pure heat or pure coldness, if they exceed moderation, do not result in a composition for animals or plants. Thus, this path necessitates logically that a hot sign be followed by a sign which follows it as cold. Or the third premise, that moisture and dryness are 2 qualities that are passive, affected, and the active is the weakness of the passive quality. So, if a moist sign were followed by a dry sign, followed by a moist sign, followed by a dry sign, and the active, meaning the weakness of that quality, were doubled, the result of its trace would be less than what corresponds to the composition of the animal and plant. Thus, wisdom affirmed that a moist sign should follow a human sign. Then a moist sign follows it, until this passive quality strengthens, and the result thereof becomes suitable for the composition of plants and animals. Since these premises are established, the third dyad was resolved. So we say, since it is established that Leo is hot and dry, and it is established that it is necessary that a hot sign be followed by a cold sign, and that a dry sign be followed by a moist sign, and it was not possible for the natures of the signs to fall according to the highest arrangement mentioned by the astronomers, and contemplation reveals what we have imitated. And we have known by what we have clarified the method for proving that Leo is hot and dry. So, regarding the place, either it is hot or cold, or moist or dry, and the third is determined to be hot or dry. As for our statement that it is not permissible for it to be cold or moist, that is because if that were so, it would be like the winter season. So the nature of life would necessarily strengthen. And the distinction is that it cannot be cold or dry nor moist. Rather, it is necessary that it be hot and moist, because it occurred in the exception istithna, distinct moistures. Thus, that which is needed in the spring is akin to what is in it, which is not just toward moderation, but toward leaning. Thus, only the lion, Leo, remains as hot and dry. And since this is proven, it is proven that it is necessary that there occurs after the sign, every hot sign, moist or dry, with moistures. Thus it is proven that the arrangement mentioned by the astronomers is in check. And there may be found, upon this other perspectives and forms, in the obscure matters referring to the words of Abu Ja'far al-Kazin, may God have mercy upon him. That is, you, if you contemplated the sun, verily it travels towards the equinox, and the equinox acts by its influence in this world stronger and more manifest, because the change of time in it is a separation to a beneficial season. Fasl Salih. Then the two signs attributed to the equinox are preferred over the two signs attributed to the solstice. Then he detailed for that a detail that derives from the signs. And since the will was such, the attribution of the revolution to coldness and dryness became necessary. This is evidenced by two aspects. One of them is that the hot and the dry are at the utmost limit of superiority over the cold and the moist. The second is that dryness is an expression of the refusal to be acted upon, while moisture is an expression of the acceptance of being acted upon, and the refusal to be acted upon is, by necessity, nobler than the acceptance thereof, for the active is nobler than the passive. Since the sphere is the noblest of physical bodies, we have attributed to it the qualities of dryness. As for the balance Libra, although it shares with the ram Aries in nobility, the ram is nobler than the balance because the sun, when it enters it, ascends to the north, and that becomes a cause for the increase of strength and perfection. But as for the balance, when the sun descends into it, it descends to the south, and that becomes a cause for the occurrence of weakness and diminution. Thus, the kid Capricorn is the noblest of the cold signs, and the crab Cancer is the most base of them. Thus, we have attributed to the kid the quality of dryness, and to the crab the quality of moisture. And the triplicities have been distributed upon these four natures. The fiery, so the ram is hot and dry. The kid is cold and dry. The balance is hot and moist. And the crab is cold and moist. If this is established, we say, this sign consists of 12 parts distributed upon these four natures. Thus, the share of every single one of these natures is 3 signs without fail. Thus, a third of them are fiery, a third are earthy, a third are airy, and a third are watery. The primary consideration is that this triplicity should be built upon the view of the triangulation, al-Tathlith, because the triangle is the first of shapes in existence. And when the matter is such, it is decisive that the natures of the signs fall upon the arrangement we have detailed, for it is a path to the rulings of impacts. And perhaps another aspect may be found from the excellence of the perspective of that which Abu Ja'far al-Kazin, may God have mercy upon him, mentioned, and it is built upon premises. One of them is that heat is nobler than coldness, and dryness is nobler than moisture. The second is that the elements are 4, so it is necessary that the signs be 4. The third is that fire is the most capable of elements in action, and earth is the most capable of them in being acted upon, and fire is hot and dry, while earth is cold and dry. And if the active power were lighter in relation to the passive power. We say, since the active heat is stronger than the cold, and likewise the heat that is stronger than the cold. And if we affirm these premises, we say, the first triplicity is the noblest of the triplicities, because the ram Aries is the noblest of the signs. And we have mentioned that heat and dryness are the noblest of the elements and the most resistant to being acted upon. Thus it is necessary that the ram be hot and dry. since the elements are four, fire, earth, air and water, and the decrease and perfection pertain to them, it implies that the existence of the triplicity here is of two types, the hot and moist, and the cold and moist. And the hot and moist is nobler than the cold and moist, because the hot acts upon the cold. Thus, the balance Libra became hot and moist, and the crab Cancer became cold and moist. And since the equal signs differ in nature, their occurrence upon the arrangement of the aforementioned triplicity necessitates decisively the path which places the ram, the balance, the crab, and the kid as the points of the equinoxes and solstices. The two equinox points are better than the two solstice points, and we have established that heat is better than coldness, so the two hot equinox points correspond to the ram and the balance. Then you have known that the ram is nobler than the balance, and dryness is nobler than moisture. Thus it was obligatory that the ram be hot and dry, and the balance be hot and moist. Also, the ascent of the sun into the north is the beginning of its descent, so the kid Capricorn was superior to the crab Cancer. Thus it was obligatory that the kid be cold and dry, and the crab be cold and moist. Thus the existence of these four natures is established for these four signs. And since it was not possible to mix these four except by this triplicity, it was obligatory that every third of the signs be of a single nature. And according to the perspective of the triplicity upon what we have clarified, and if these premises are established, then the arrangement widely known is settled, and God knows best. The reliance regarding the affirmation of the natures of the signs is experience, and this is appropriate to what the intellect extracts by the path of creation and character. And the philosophers permitted reliance upon it in affirmation and negation. The sixth chapter, regarding the male, the female, the diurnal and the nocturnal signs. The philosophers agreed that the individual odd is nobler than the pair even, and the second point is that the individual does not accept division into equal parts, while the pair does accept division. The third is that the number is deficient in its limit. If you leave the individual in its limit, the trace of the individual remains after the principles. Thus the individual was noble and the pair was base. Likewise the male is nobler than the female. Thus it was obligatory to equate the individual with the male and the pair with the female. And since the ram Aries is the noblest of the signs, it was fitting that the beginning be with it. So they made the individuals, odd numbers, derived from it masculine, intended to be males, like the ram, the twins, Gemini, the lion, Leo, the balance, Libra, the archer, Sagittarius, and the water carrier, Aquarius. And they made the pairs, even numbers derived from it, feminine, intended to be females, like the bull, Taurus, the crab, Cancer, the virgin Virgo, the scorpion, Scorpio, the kid, Capricorn, and the whale, Pisces. And based on this analogy, the philosopher said, "The light is nobler than the darkness, for the heat belongs to the daylight, and the cold belongs to the night." So they made the diurnal signs masculine and the nocturnal signs feminine. This arrangement corresponds to the conjunction of the male with the female and the hot with the cold. They said heat is fortunate and cold is miserable, and the intermediate is average. And according to the reverse, coldness is the greatness of femininity. Thus they made the ascendant male and the second female, and upon this arrangement. And they made the masculine signs indicative of males and parents, and the feminine indicative of females. And know that the planets are stronger in the masculine signs if they are masculine, and weaker if they are contrary to them. And as for the feminine signs, the planets are strongest in them if they are feminine, and differ if they are masculine. And if a masculine planet is in a masculine sign, its indication is increased in strength, and if it is in a feminine sign, its indication is weakened. And the bull, Taurus, the lion, Leo, and the whale, Pisces, are born from the lion. The bull is based upon the cleavage of its hooves. As for the ram, Aries, the bull, and the lion, there is no shade in them for the lion due to the mane. And the bull represents several other matters, and it is described as a bull cut at the navel. As for the whale, it is born upon the absence of limbs. The second attribute, regarding which of them are attributed to the human being, they are the twins, Gemini, the Virgin, Virgo, the Balance, Libra, the Water Carrier, Aquarius, and the first half of the Archer, Sagittarius. And regarding those that are quadrupeds, they are the ram, the bull, the lion, and the Archer, Sagittarius, the latter half. And among them are those that are creeping things and amphibians, which indicates the species of animals such as the lion, the scorpion, the archer, and the whale, in their indications upon the aquatic animals, and the fiery, earthy, and airy signs in their indications upon the beasts, and like the twins, the ear of corn, Virgo, and the whale in their indications upon birds, and like the crab, the scorpion, and the whale in their indications upon aquatic animals. The third attribute, regarding the ram, the bull, the twins, the lion, the ear of corn, and the balance. These are possessing forms, and the water carrier is of a weak situation in form, and the crab, the scorpion, and the whale are lacking in form. And this is what the seafarer needs for knowledge of the form. Regarding speech and the corruption of speech in these signs, the fourth attribute, the watery signs, which are the crab, the scorpion, and the whale, and the halving of the ram, the bull, the balance, the archer, the water carrier, and the ear of corn, are varied. The ram, the bull, the lion, and the first of the kid, Capricorn, are of few children. The water carrier, the balance, the archer, and the first of the bull, and the ear of corn, are of many children. The lion and the first of the kid are barren. As for the twins, the ear of corn and the archer, they produce twins, and perhaps the ram, the balance, and the last of the kid indicate twins also. As for the first of the kid and the first of the scorpion, they indicate the hermaphrodite. The fifth attribute, the ram, the bull, the lion, the kid, and the whale possess lust and eagerness for copulation, and in the balance and the archer is something of that. As for the affairs of women, the bull, the lion, the scorpion, and the water carrier indicate chaste women, and the ram, the crab, the balance, and the whale indicate their corruption, and the twins, the ear of corn, the archer, and the whale indicate a middle state in that among them. And the ear of corn is the most chaste of the signs. The sixth attribute, the lion, the bull, and the scorpion indicate the limit for each one of them, of little worth and determination. And the ear of corn and the kid, in each one of them, is great injustice. The seventh attribute, every sign has an indication in one direction among the directions of the world and the faces of the four climes, right and left. So we divide the 12 into 4 sections. As for the ram, it indicates the east, and it does not signify upon the left of the directions of the north. And the archer indicates the right of the direction of the south. And the twins indicate the heart of the south. And the ear of corn indicates the left of the east. And the kid indicates the right of the west. And the twins indicates the left of the west, and the balance indicates the left of the west, and the water carrier indicates the right of the north, and the crab indicates the heart of the north, and the scorpion indicates the left of the west, and the whale indicates the right of the east. And know that every sign relates to a region, so if we attribute that region to that sign, the example refers to the sign that is related to that region. South. If it were to the east, it is west relative to the archer. And if it were the whale, it is closest to the ear of corn, Virgo. But some of the wise men said the sphere is similar to the human being. The ram is the head, the bull is the neck and the bead of the throat. The twins are the shoulders and the hands. The crab is the chest, the breasts, the ribs and the stomach to the navel. The lion is the belly and what encompasses it. The ear of corn, Virgo, is the belly and the bowels. The balance is the hips, the male and female organs, and the buttocks. The scorpion is the loins. The archer is the thighs. The kid, Capricorn, is the knees. The water carrier, Aquarius, is the shanks. The whale, Pisces, is the feet. The eighth section to extract the sayings regarding each one of these signs. As for the first type, the manners, character. We say regarding the ram, Aries, it is kingly, a builder of kingdoms, loving of news, loving of poetry, angry, lustful, brave. The bull, Taurus, distant of depth, dull of intelligence, of great lust, red, holding grudges, generous, subtle, a companion of play and amusement and celestial sciences, generous of hand and strong of assault. The crab, Cancer, dull, mute, variable. The lion, Leo, kingly by nature, furious, a seeker of wars, widely known, deceiving of people, courageous. The ear of corn, Virgo, of good character, truthful, literary, of two faces and two thoughts, sharp, light and playful. Jesting. The balance, Libra, generous, dull, cowardly, fair, of high nature, a critic of poetry. The scorpion, Scorpio, of bad character, possessor of delusions, deceitful, generous, daring, and in him is frowning and anger, a murderer, foolish, lazy, abased, a sorcerer, courageous. The archer, Sagittarius, of kingly nature, secretive, an initiator of exploits, holding grudges, an engineer, a surveyor, thoughtful in the consequences, loving of beasts, subtle in food and drink and clothing, mistaken by people, strange of sex, courageous. The kid, Capricorn, of confused nature, a liar, angry, intensely changing in evil, abundant in grief and fatigue, loving of wisdom, renowned by it, of opinion, and he is of good livelihood, lustful, brave. The water carrier, Aquarius, chaste, inciting toward killing and affection, subtle of water, generous, dull, desiring of gathering wealth, miserly with it, strong in opinion, cowardly in times of distress, calm, abundant in thought regarding death, lazy. The whale, Pisces, of good character, clean, abundant in desires, unstable in opinion, intermediate in loyalty, deceitful and treacherous, foolish, courageous. The second type, the appearance and the form. The ram, Aries, squared, elevated of gaze, lean of flesh, large of ear, eloquent of mouth, curling of hair, blonde, reddish, tall of stature, large of forehead, small of eyebrows, black of eye, little of whiteness in it, gazing toward the ground, protruding nose, thick of lip, thick of hair and neck. The bull, Taurus, smooth of hair, black, great of belly, average of stature, good of appearance and neck and beard, possessor of beauty, sharp of gaze, broad between the shoulders, his legs are longer than his arms. The crab, Cancer, moderate in stature to tall, dense of hair, crooked of nose, different of teeth, lowering the gaze to the ground, lower half is greater, thin of leg, long of fingers, lisps in speech, broad of chest. The lion, Leo. Thick of fingers, thin of thigh, high of body, exceedingly large of face, beautiful of eyes, blue or hazel, wide of nose and mouth, quick of movement and high of voice, angry, great of head. The ear of corn, Virgo. Moderate to fatness, lank of hair, good of face, possessing moles on the chest and belly and a mark on his neck. The balance, Libra. Moderate of limbs, good of face and hands, white inclining to ruddiness, and the image. The kidneys are good, the nose and the upper chest are broad, waist is knotted and graceful. The Scorpion, Scorpio. Good of stature, high of forehead, small of eyes, there is redness in them, extended of hands and feet, narrow of forehead, broad of shoulders. The Archer, Sagittarius. Look into his back, marks, great of belly, light of flesh, good of body, beautiful of face, tanned, reddish, protruding front of teeth, smooth of eye, lank of hair, little of beard, thick of nose-tip, great of belly. The Kid, Capricorn. Possessing marks on his lap and his legs, in the middle of his body is beauty, lean of stature, beautiful of form, sharp of gaze, bent of nose, thin of neck, abundant hair, good hair of the beard, long of it, little hair of the chest, thin of thighs and shanks, weak of walking, inclining. The Water Carrier, Aquarius. Squared, not tall nor short, inclining to length, small of heel, and its blackness is greater than its whiteness. Thick of shanks, high of gaze, different shanks, one of them longer than the other, broad of chest, beautiful of face and sound, soft of body, beautiful of waist, medium of length, broad of chest, narrow between the shoulders, crooked of belly, small of head, narrow of forehead, lowering the gaze, abundant of silence. The third type, regarding illnesses and diseases. Generally, defects and particularities in the head, such as baldness and redness in the face, and leprosy, and lice in the armpits, and the mark in the ear. The Bull, Taurus, and the Man, Aquarius, indicates a stink in the armpits and thighs, an intermediate goodness of scent, and the first of it implies excess, and the last of it implies lightness, deficiency, and middle of intellect, and most of it is in the neck, like scrofula, diphtheria, and whiteness, and indicates freckles and stink of the armpits and legs, and marks on the back, the chest, and the walnut, throat, lump. And in the Kid Capricorn, freckles, easy movement, and the Crab, Cancer, pleurisy, alopecia, impetigo, and leprosy, vitiligo, and piles, hemorrhoids, and heaviness in the leg, not easy. And the Lion, Leo. Strong excess in its end, deficiency and diminution, and it implies many illnesses, particularly from the side of the stomach, weakness thereof, and pain of the hands, and baldness, and it indicates upon the belly of the mouth. And the Ear of Corn, Virgo. Moderate in judicial decrees, sound of limbs, average of intellect, indicates upon the weak rib, strong of bowels. The Balance, Libra. In judicial decrees, strong, sound of limbs. The Scorpion, Scorpio. First of it is healthy, and its last involves diseases, sound of limbs, many illnesses, and most of them are the face, and the dumbness, and the sty in the eye, and baldness, and the itch, and the fever, and the ringworm, and the scratching, the eating, ulcers, leprosy, toothache, kidney stones, difficulty in urination, stench of the male and female organs. And the Archer, Sagittarius, and the Whale, Pisces, sound and strong, and its end implies weak diseases, moderate in judicial decrees, sound of limbs, average of intellect, most of it is gout and cough, and blindness and lameness and baldness, and nose ailments, and falling from high places, and blights from cutting, and excess in the limbs, and abundance of sleep. And the Kid Capricorn. Weak, many diseases, sound of limbs, and most of it is leprosy and gout, and the water carrier, Aquarius, and the kid, Capricorn. First of it is sound, and last of it is weak. Sound of limbs, illness of jaundice and yellow bile, and constant catarrh, and darkness of vision, and pain of the eye, and breakage, and sprains, and falling, and stench of the gill's nose. The whale, Pisces. Lean, weak, many diseases, particularly in the nerves, gout, the hot wind, coolness of the spleen, and the itch and mange, scabies and baldness. The fourth type, regard in colours. The ram, Aries, is red and white mixed with yellow, and the bull, Taurus, is white mixed with blackness. And the lion, Leo, is red mixed with whiteness. And the ear of corn, Virgo, is yellow of colour inclining to whiteness. And the balance, Libra, is white tawny. And the scorpion, Scorpio, is white-green. And the archer, Sagittarius, is of a colour inclining to redness. And the kid, Capricorn, is of mixed colour in which there is greenness. And the water carrier, Aquarius, is yellow mixed with sky blue. And the whale, Pisces, is white. The fifth type, regarding the classes of people. The ram, Aries, belongs to kings and soldiers, and tax collectors, and blacksmiths and butchers, and executioners, and shepherds, and eyes of thieves. And the bull, Taurus, is for tailors, and measurers, weighers, and cultivators, and farmers. And the twins, Gemini, is for kings, and the wealthy, and the hunters, and the accountants, and the tailors, and the builders, and the geometrical surveyors. And the crab, Cancer, is for the praisers and the diggers of rivers and the humble people. And the lion, Leo, is for kings and hunters and those outside the law. And the ear of corn, Virgo, is for viziers and masters and scribes and trustees and the middle class of people. And the balance, Libra, is for the people of ranks and judges and scholars and philosophers and merchants and engineers and hermits. And the scorpion, Scorpio, is for the bondmen and the debtors and prisoners and sailors. And the archer, Sagittarius, is for the hashish users, or grass gatherers, and middlemen, brokers, and the middle class of people. And the kid, Capricorn, is for the worshippers and the slaves. And the water carrier, Aquarius, is for the slaves and the bondmaids. And the whale, Pisces, is for the pimps, harsh intermediaries, and indicates the sailors and the blind. The sixth type, regarding places. The ram, Aries. The deserts and pastures of sheep, and places where fire is kindled, and shelters for thieves and roofed houses with wood. And the bull, Taurus. That which is close to the mountains and the gardens and the positions of living and the places of cows and elephants and the houses of food. And the twins, Gemini. The mountains and the places of hunters and the lines of the sowers and the places of gamblers and singers and the palaces of kings. And the crab, Cancer. The islands of water, and the thickets, and the swamps, marshes, and the places of rain, and the edges of rivers, and the places of worship. And the lion, Leo. The mountains, and the fortresses, and the high buildings, and the palaces of kings, and the deserts, and the rocky lands, unfit for life. And the ear of corn, Virgo. The drugstores, and the parks, and the homes of women, and the pleasure-seekers, and every place wherein is planting and crops. And the balance, Libra. The mosques and the houses of worship, and the palaces and the civilizations, and the places of hunting, and the deserts, and the gardens, and the peaks of mountains that are cultivated. And the scorpion, Scorpio. The filthy places, and the streams of corrupted water, and the prisons, and the places of grief, and whatever is close to them. And the archer, Sagittarius, the temples of the Magians, and the places of worship of the fire worshippers, and the places of beasts, and the kid Capricorn, and the places of weeping, and the house of slaves, and the places of mules, and the stations of strangers. And the kid Capricorn indicates the sand and the desert, and the water carrier Aquarius, the places of running water, and the stagnant pools, and wherein fire is kindled, like the baths and the inns of wine, and the houses of prostitution, and what is excavated by pickaxe. And the whale Pisces, the places of birds, and the places of water, and the shallow waters, and the shores, and the banks, and the coasts of stagnant water. The seventh type, regarding the difference in countries, as for the ram, Aries. To it belongs Babylon, Palestine, Azerbaijan, and Alans, and the shore of Hamadan, and the Kurds, and the mountains, and Alexandria, and Constantinople, and Amman, and the Berbers, and Fars. And the twins, Gemini, Egypt, Armenia, and Gilan, and to it is a partnership in Isfahan and Kerman. And the crab, Cancer. To it belongs behind Maokan from Armenia, the Lesser, and some of Phrygia, and Hajar, and Bahrain, and a partnership in Khorasan. And the lion, Leo, is for the Turks, to Gog, and the end of civilization, from Askalat and Bait al-Maqdis, Jerusalem, and Malatya, and Mekran, and Dailam, and Nishapur, and Tus, and Al-Sud. And the ear of corn, Virgo, implies Andalusia, and Syria, and Makran, and Sana, and Kufa, and Kerman, and Sijistan, to the Euphrates. And the balance, Libra. The Romans to Ifriqiya, Africa, and Upper Egypt, to the borders of Abyssinia, and Tarkash, and Makkah, and Balkh, and Herat, and Sijistan, and Kabul. Abundant in springs and tough terrain, the land of the Hijaz and the Bedouin lands of the Arabs, extending to Yemen and the city, Medina, and to the valley of the people of Moses, peace be upon him. To the sign of Sagittarius belong Isfahan, Baghdad, Ray, Dinawar, Nahavand, and the gates of the mountains, extending to the west to the land of Makran, Sind, and the centre of Jurjan, reaching toward India and China. And to the east belong the lands of the Romans, Byzantium, and the regions of Kufa, the lands of the Tigris, the land of the Copts, the sanctity of the Holy House, Jerusalem, the mountains of Tabaristan, the back of the Hijaz, and north of Jurjan and Bukhara and Samarkand, and the island of Egypt and Alexandria and the Sea of Yemen. And to the east belongs the eighth type of salty waters. As for plants, to it belong palm trees, reddish plants, and wheat, and of metals, copper, iron, lead, sulphur, red ochre, and collyrium, and of animals, the speaking one, human, and the solid-hoofed animals, and plants, and wool, and hair, and collars, and necklaces, and fruitful trees, and fats, and oils, and flax, and safflower, and walnuts, and bracelets, and dirhams, and dinars, and perfume, and aromatic plants, and emeralds. And to the crab Cancer belongs the cedar tree, and sugar cane, and lions, and terrifying beasts, and creepers, and whatever is of the naked kind. And whatever acts upon fire, and gold, and silver, and rubies, and chrysolite, and mercury, and the ear of corn, Virgo, and grains, and legumes, and seeds, and urgent matters, and coral, and amber, and aloes wood, and sandalwood, and lutes, and scorpions, and the depths of the sea, like coral, and others. And to the bow, Sagittarius, belong lead, which is of the nature of creation, and arrows, and spears, and silk, and brocade, and brick, and Capricorn. And whatever is of the genus of water, like pearls and shells. And the water carrier, Aquarius, extracts the waters. The ninth type regarding animals, to the ram, Aries, belong the hoofed animals, and sheep, and mountains, and mountain goats, and sheep, and rams, and deer. And to the bull Taurus belong cows and calves and elephants and cows of the thicket, And to the twins, Gemini, belong human beings, and monkeys, and domestic birds, and snakes. And to the crab, Cancer, belong the vermin, and animals of the water, and of the centipedes, and the crab, and the frog, and the beetle. And to the lion, Leo, belong the beasts of prey, and every animal possessing a claw. And to the ear of corn, Virgo, belong the magpie, and the crow, and the nightingale, and the sparrow, and the parrot. And to the balance, Libra, belong the birds, and the leopards, and the jinn. And to the Scorpio, belong the vermin, and animals of the water, and predators. And to the bow, Sagittarius, belong the animals of upright stature, like the scorpion men and the wasps. And to the goat, Capricorn, belong the creeping things of the earth, like the worms and the fleas and the flies and the vermin of the earth, and the birds and the vermin. And to the water carrier, Aquarius, belong the predatory birds and the eagles. And to the whale, Pisces, belong the birds and the creatures and the beasts of the water and the eagles. The 10th type, regarding trees and plants. To the ram, Aries, belongs every medicine in which there is warmth, like spurge. And to the bull, Taurus, belong the tall trees, and the straight trees like the teak, and the moderate trees. And to the twins, Gemini, belong the tall trees. And to the ear of corn, Virgo, belongs everything that is sown. And to the balance, Libra, belong the tall trees. And to the scorpion, Scorpio, belongs what is sown in the heads of mountains. And to the scorpion, Scorpio, also belong the moderate trees. And to the bow, Sagittarius, belongs that which has a trunk, like grass, and what has no trunk. And to the goat, Capricorn, belong the tillage and the grains, and whatever has no fruit, and the olive and the walnut, and whatever has thick branches, like the teak. And to the water carrier, Aquarius, belong the citron, and the apple, and the peach, and the pear, and the apricot, and the fragrant fruits, and the types of cucumbers. And to the whale, Pisces, belong the camphor, and the water lilies, and the aromatic plants, and the tall palm trees, and the straight ones, and the sugar cane, and the fragrant winds, and the courtyard, and the sweet winds. And to the crab, Cancer, belong the waters, and the medicines, and whatever grows of the senna, and the medicines, the moist, and the shadow of the air, or the dusty earth. And to the ear of corn, Virgo, belongs every flowing water, and the rains that nourish the trees and cause them to grow. And to the fruits belongs that which mixes the atmosphere. And to the scorpion, Scorpio, belongs the indication of hot waters, and the rivers, and the marketplaces, and the torrents. And to the bow, Sagittarius, belongs the indication of altering waters. And to the goat, Capricorn, belongs the indication of dew. The 9th chapter, regarding the conditions resulting from the comparison of the zodiacal signs with one another, which are the aspects, and God knows best the truth. The first aspect is the aspect of the trine, and it is the third, looking to the third. But looking at the third is essentially looking at the trine, not to the right nor to the left. Trine is the strongest of them, then sextile, which is its half, and also each sign looks at its fourth according to the arrangement of the right, and at its 10th according to the arrangement of the left. And also each sign looks at its 5th, which is the trine facing the right, and at its 9th according to the arrangement of the left. And also each sign looks at its 7th, facing it from the opposite side, and looking at the 2nd, and at the 12th, and at the adjacent signs is fallen null, and this sign is called averted. And looking at the 8th, and the 6th, and the 2nd, and the 12th, they agreed to call the trine and the sextile the aspect of happiness or aspect of love, and the square and the opposition the aspect of enmity. And it appeared in some of the books that there are persuasive reasons for this, although they are weak in establishing this claim. For the advocate said, "As for the trine, 3 is a number that comprises the beginning, the middle, and the end, and it does not contain directions of extension. As for the distance, the trine is the long aspect along the width and depth. And also the triangle is the first number from which a rectilinear figure can be found, having sides according to its number. And also the trine possesses equal angles and sides. And also, just as the difference of its angles accepts the circle, and the circle accepts division. And also it is a measure for capacity to all shapes by nature, for all other shapes are divided by nature into triangles, but the triangle is not divided except into one. As for the sextile, it implies virtues from it, for it is not possible for a circle to be surrounded by a number of touching circles and touching the first circle unless the number of circles is 6. And from this, the hex implies in the shapes whatever implies the side, which is equal to the radius in length and strength. But the hexagon, if the side of the hexagon is equal to half the diameter of the sphere. And from this, the first of numbers is the 6, for it is the complete number. They said, "Since these 2 shapes are of this honour, the movement of the stars upon these 2 shapes became an indication of perfection and happiness. As for the opposition, it indicates the utmost distance, and it is like contrasting opposites. As for the square, it is half of the opposition, so it is strictly prohibited like the opposition. For this reason, the scholars agreed that the signs which look at one another by trine and sextile are friendly, and the ones that look by square and opposition are hostile. Looking by trine occurs from a sign to the 5th sign from it, for example, from Aries to Leo, and from Leo to Sagittarius, and each one of them is fiery. And looking from Taurus to Virgo, and from Virgo to Capricorn, and their nature is earthly. And looking from Gemini to Libra, and from Libra to Aquarius, and their nature is airy. And looking from Cancer to Scorpio, and from Scorpio to Pisces, and their nature is watery. Thus, in the trine aspect, there is agreement in nature, and agreement in nature is a cause for happiness. And that is because the signs which are in trine must be agreed in nature, like Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, for they are fiery, hot, and dry. But looking by sextile, since it agrees in the active quality and differs in the passive quality, and the active is stronger in influence, looking by sextile is merely weaker than looking by trine. But there is no doubt that looking by trine is the friendship of the viewing signs from the trine, being distinct in the active quality, because we have made clear that their arrangement is, one is hot and one is cold. Thus the second is always cold, and the third is hot. Thus looking by sextile necessitates that one be hot and the other cold. As for the passive quality, agreement might occur and it might not occur. And that is because if we take any 2 signs, there is no escape that one be of the moist and one of the dry. For if we take the 4th, which is the opposition, like Aries and Libra, or Cancer and Capricorn, looking at the 4th, they are mutually hostile in nature. Indeed, looking by square is the strongest in enmity, but the outcome of the 2 qualities is varied. If we look at the second arrangement, they said its strongest is the conjunction and the opposition, then the trine, then the sextile, not from the right, then the sextile, not from the left, and God knows best. The second type, regarding the gaze of the signs at one another, regarding the ways. Know that the first is that every two signs which rise in two equal periods, and between one of them in the north and the other in the south, they are called agreeable in power, because their hours are equal, their nights are equal, and likewise their ascensions and degrees of passage in all places are equal. And that is like the fish Pisces and the ram Aries, with the water carrier Aquarius and the bull Taurus. And upon this measurement the second of each two signs revolves in its orbit. As for one of them being in the north and the second in the south, they correspond in the two paths, and their hours are like one another. Its day is like the hours of the other's night, and likewise the hours of the night. Their ascensions in the land, and the hours of the night, and the ascensions in the straight sphere are equal, and that is like the twins, Gemini with the crab Cancer, and like the bull Taurus with the lion Leo. This agreement in degrees is reversed, for the first degree of Cancer agrees with the 30th degree of Gemini. The third is that every two signs whose master is one planet are agreed. The third type, regarding the division of the signs into two halves by the line connecting between the beginning of Aries and the beginning of Libra. The sphere falls into two halves. One of them is northern and the other is southern. And the northern half is better than the southern half due to the existence of the inhabitable world and the dominance of the north on the right and the south on the left. And the right is better than the left. The second, that the architectures present in the northern half are distinct from the southern half. The third, that the signs existing in the northern half are high, and the signs existing in the southern half are low. And the line connecting from the beginning of Cancer to the beginning of Capricorn divides the sphere in two halves. One of them is ascending, which is from the beginning of Capricorn to the beginning of Cancer, and the descending is from the beginning of Cancer to the beginning of Capricorn. For the Sun is close to Capricorn in the perigee, and to Cancer in the apogee. So it is fitting that it ascends from the perigee to the apogee, and descends from the apogee to the perigee. Or it is close to Cancer, and the northern half is its apogee for its exaltation, and the southern half is its descent from its nobility and its lowest point. As for the crooked and straight signs, the ascending signs are called straight, and the descending are called crooked. But they were named crooked due to the deficiency of their ascensions in the lands from their ascensions in the straight sphere. And the descending were called straight because of the increase of their ascensions in the lands over their ascensions in the straight sphere. And the straight is better than the crooked, and the straight signs are those of long ascension, and the crooked are those of short ascension. The fourth type, regarding the triplicities. The signs agreed in nature were formed into groups. So a triad came to be formed upon the image of a triangle equal in sides. Therein is the triplicity of Aries, which belongs to Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Their nature is fiery, indicating heat and dryness. Their rising is from the east. Their nature is bitter. Their condition is upon the biliary humour. It indicates, regarding the animals, the wild beasts, and the predators. And regarding the mountains, the high ones, and the solid stones. And regarding the trees, the tall ones. And regarding the places, the high ones. And the triplicity of Taurus, which belongs to Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, is earthly. Its nature is cold and dry, indicating agriculture and greatness. And to the balance, Libra, and the water carrier, Aquarius, belong the airy nature, indicating wind and agitation of the air. and the triplicity of Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces is a watery triplicity, indicating the waters. As for the direction of the wind, they pertain to the north. The second section regarding the times, and they are four, for the year is divided into four sections. The first section, from the vernal equinox to the summer solstice, and it is 91 days and a fraction in longitude. And in latitude it is 92 days and a fraction. For the longitude, which is its breadth, is less than 90 degrees. And if it is more than 90, then the longitude is less than 90. And the place mentioned is the southern quarter. And if it is more than 90, the northern quarter is wider. So the place which is the southeastern quarter is the fiery quarter, and the place which is the northeastern quarter is the earthy quarter, and the place which is the northwestern quarter is the airy quarter, and the place which is the southwestern quarter is the watery quarter. Thus we say the fiery triplicity is for the eastern spring, and the earthy is for the southern summer, and the airy is for the western autumn, and the watery is for the northern winter. They made the sphere derived from the qualities of the seasons. So Aries, Taurus and Gemini are spring-like, and Cancer, Leo and Virgo are summer-like, and Libra, Scorpio and Sagittarius are autumn-like, and Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces are winter-like. And since each season has a beginning, a middle and an end, the days of it are 3 equal parts. For this reason, the zodiacal region became divided into 12 sections equal in division. The first section of every quarter is the one to which the sun transfers and upon which the season becomes established. For that reason, they named the signs of the first third of each quarter cardinal turning. For when the sun enters them, the nature of that season is strengthened. The chapter which follows this will elaborate on that. They named the cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn, and the 4 signs which are the middle of each quarter fix. Fameusen fix, stend artars. Tristus. For the first implies existence and birth, and the second implies intensity and persistence on one state, and the 4 last signs are of 2 bodies, mutable, and imply mixing and blending and colouring and scarcity of distinct stratagems and differences in matters. And the mutable are coloured and mixed. For the fixed signs are strong in the pillars, and their mixture is temperate. And the signs of the 2 bodies, mutable, are weak, and the cardinal are between that. Know that the fixed signs are upon the concordance of the 4 natures, and likewise the fixed and the mutable, they are different in their essences, but they are similar in the attribute of their accidental qualities, and they are either cardinal, fixed, or mutable. The 10th chapter, regarding the traits of the 7 planets. Know that the bodies of the planets differ in their natures and minerals, and as the souls differ, so do the bodies. And just as the states of the soul differ, for example, one is angry, and he becomes heated and becomes dry, and he becomes angry according to the dominance of the humours upon the body, so strictly does the state of the planets differ. The first attribute, the nature of the planets regarding themselves, and regarding the qualities, and the cold, and the wet, and the dry. Regarding this rule, it is the apparent statement of the philosophers that the celestial bodies are free in their essences from these qualities. Some of the investigators combined between this rule and the apparent statement of the senses. They claimed that their effect is not essentially heating or cooling, but it is purely metaphorical. Regarding this interpretation, they say, "It, the planet, is hot and cold. But what is meant by hot is that the movement produces heat, not that it is essentially hot." They disagreed regarding the quality of the production of heat and cold. Regarding this, the learned ones mentioned aspects. One of them is that these planets are essentially chosen in action, and they act by choice, not by nature. Its rays overflow into this world. And the ray is heating, for every star is heating due to the overflow of the ray from it. So it is impossible that it be a cause for two opposite effects, the heating ray and the cooling quality. And the answer regarding the first is that it is not impossible that the generated light of the star is heating very slightly, but its substance is cooling. So it does not overflow into its interior, for the distinct appearance is running from the exterior to the interior. So the alternation of heat and cold is necessary. By this cause we see a man upon whom the cold and the gloominess enter, and his rays were preventing his coldness. The second, that it is not impossible that the simple nature be a source for two differing effects on some faces, like the watery nature, for it benefits the body by necessity of density and cooling, and benefits moisture by connection regarding flow and fluidity. So here we say, the answer to what they held fast to regarding the knowledge of the natures of the planets has two faces. The first, that searching for the natures of the pillars, elements, and their colours is better for every famous star. Just as our ruling regarding the belief that it resembles something in the natures requires us first to clarify the colours of the pillars and the mixtures. Then the natures of the planets appear from the clarification of the colours. And as for the colours of the pillars, they said, fire. Its colour is redness, and there is no one who says that this redness perceived by the senses strengthens the colour of the object burnt by fire. Because the fire which is generated from the striking of the stone upon the iron, its colour is redness. And there is nothing there that burns by fire, so we know that redness is the colour of fire. As for water, its colour is whiteness. As for the earth, its colour is blackness and dust colour. And as for the air, they do not have a saying regarding its colour. As for the four mixtures, their colours are concordant. For the yellow bile is of the nature of fire, and its colour is the colour of fire. And as for the blood, its nature is the air, which is heat and moisture, and its colour is redness. And as for the phlegm, its colour is whiteness, which is the water. And as for the black bile, its colour is dust colour and gloominess, which is the earth. The introduction held regarding the clarification of the colours of the planets. They said, if we see a star whose colour is gloominess, we judge it to be upon the nature of the black bile, which is the cold and the dry. As for Mars, its colour is redness, intense in redness. So we know that it is hot and dry, excessively simpler. As for the sun, she is hot and implies upon her face that her colour resembles the colour of redness in burning, so that implies the nature of heat and dryness, as we mentioned in Mars. The second is that her being heating for bodies and ripening for moistures is a distinct matter. As for Venus, and as for her colour, it is composed of whiteness and yellowness, and the whiteness implies the nature, which is the cold and the moisture, and the yellowness implies the heat. And since the whiteness in Venus is more than her yellowness, specifically for her nature in these qualities, despite her coldness and her moisture being more than her heat, she became beneficial. As for Jupiter, since what is in him of yellowness is more than the whiteness, and he was moderate, not leaning towards the heat. As for the moon, within her is whiteness, and a dust colour implying gloominess. So her whiteness implies the moisture, and her gloominess implies the coldness and dryness. We said we have a doubtful matter here. We have seen differing colours on a single body. Perhaps we saw green, and perhaps we saw dusty. Perhaps the variation of these two colours is due to differing times, yet despite its being in a single station and a single place. We said that Mercury must have a nature distinct solely for it, but we found the dominant colour is the dusty, earthy colour. So the nature of Mercury inevitably leans towards the earthy, and its dryness is stronger. And the scholars knew they disagreed regarding this direction. One of them arranged it in wisdom, that sharing in some of the attributes does not necessitate sharing in the essence, nor in the rest of the attributes. For the yellow bile indicates participation in the colour, does not necessitate participation in the nature. For the arsenic and the sal ammoniac and the ascending mercury, all of it is sublimated sulphur, as is in the hollow of the earth, and its colour is white, and it is the colour of the snow, which is extremely cold. And the second is that the differences of the stars in their colours is as we mentioned. As for Saturn, his colour is leaden black, because the leaden colour is of the blackness and dust colour mixed. And as for the Sun, her whiteness is more than her yellowness, and they conceive of that completely. As for Venus, her yellowness implies that she is not pure in her existence, rather her colour is free from coldness. As for Mars, since his heat is intense and his dryness is dominant, he resembles fire in his colour. And this likeness between the sun and the fire, did you not see that the proximity of the sun attracts the fire more than the light of the fire? And they refuse that. As for the skepticism regarding this, Abu Mashar said, its colour is not attributed to whiteness except for him whose sight is sound. As for Mercury, its colour is differing, like a mixture of colours. But this difference in colour is not essentially due to nature, for we cannot see it except near the horizon, in that dust and among those dense vapours. Thus, this is the cause you see for its differing colours. And it is possible to answer this question by stating that this resemblance in colours necessitates the judgment of suppositions, so there is no absolute certainty in this discourse. The second method in arranging the planets is the great method, and it is built upon three premises. The first, that the active body is stronger in action than the receiving body. The second, that the greater body is greater in power. The third, the speed of the movement determines the strength of the heat. Indeed, the ancients found the greatest of the planets to be the Sun, and some of the wandering stars to be Saturn, then Jupiter, then Mars, then the Moon, then Venus, then Mercury. The deduction indicates that the Sun is heating and drying, and the Moon is moistening, and we have guided you to the proof of these premises, so we return to the objective. We say the Sun is centred in the fourth sphere. She is intermediate in proximity and distance, and she completes her cycle in a year. Thus she is intermediate in speed and in the magnitude of the body, so her effects appear manifestly. And for this reason her appearance is most evident. As for the superior planets, they are above the Sun. Mars is closer to her, and the furthest is Saturn, and Jupiter is intermediate. As for Mars, although he is small, he has attained, due to two causes, the extremity of potency and influence, and that is not the extremity in absolute gentleness, but rather the intensity of heating. This is due to a cause connected to the earth from the power of the ray. As for Saturn, since he obtained only one cause from the causes of the potency of influence, and he is at the extremity of distance from the earth and at the extremity of slowness of motion relative to Mars, his ray does not appear to penetrate with the effect of heating the earth. Thus our judgment of him is coldness. As for Jupiter, he is intermediate between two causes of potency, and that is because he is intermediate relative to the movement of Mars and Saturn, and these two causes overflow into his being intermediate in heating. and the proof that he is greater in magnitude than Saturn and Mars became that increase necessitates the potency of heating. Thus, this true judgment is that Jupiter is moderate. As for the inferior planets, we say, as for the Moon, she has obtained within her the matters of the three causes in the potency of influence. And that is because she is the greatest of the planets in body, and the most perceivable of the planets from this high world, and the fastest of the planets in motion. Thus, necessarily, her influence in this world is stronger after the Sun. However, regarding the active power and the composition, we have categorized in our knowledge that the influence in the element of water and earth is stronger than the element of air and fire. And likewise, the existence of movements for water and earth corresponds to the movements of the Moon upon the generated events, which are generated from the vapours such as clouds, thunderbolts, thunder, lightning, and dew. And the Moon follows in these conditions due to the proximity of her sphere, and followed by Mercury, then Venus. And in these actions distinct names were given to the planets to warn of the expected event. Since Venus is attributed to misfortune and the Moon is attributed to distance, no specific attribution is derived from them. But regarding misfortune, for this reason they judged Venus as being hot and moist. And when heat occurred in Venus due to proximity to the Sun, and heat is a beloved nature, necessarily they judged her with felicity. As for Mercury, he has no specific ascension, neither for heating nor for cooling. For this reason he is not a cause by himself, neither for felicity nor for misfortune, but rather he supports others. And if he is with a benefic, he is a benefic. And if he is with a malefic, he is a malefic. And he strengthens the direct actor. And he is the hypocrite. And it is the speed of his movement and the frequency of his vacillation in burning and his visibility from retrograde and direct motion, and eastern and western elongation, and proximity and distance. Thus the cause of the speed of the alteration of the air became this. Therefore they said he is a planet governing the winds. And when it was established that the absolute agent for all transformations of the wandering planets is the Sun, and that the reception of the change from one state to another regarding this aspect pertains to the Moon due to her accepting all forms, it became the nature of the soul to reflect for us. Let us speak and discuss the distinct mixing of these things to Mercury, the third method in this chapter, and it is the method of the intended powers in their experimentation. And that is that we found that when the Sun descends into the ascendant from the star of Mars or others of the stars, the cold is strengthened in that year according to the quality. However, according to the quality of the descent, if he descends in the cold countries, such as in the northern lands, then the cold is ascending from the middle of the sphere, or is stronger. And if the descent is more emphasized and its time is longer, the excessive cold in this year is more severe, and the treatment in it is more difficult, and it spoils many of the animals and plants and alters their mixtures. And the northern winds blow frequently. And as for the great drought, if it is in the time of winter and long in this year, then the summer is short. As for Mars, if he seizes the ascendant of the year from the Sun, looking at Saturn in the season of winter, the cold decreases in the northern lands, and their air becomes heated, and the mixture of animals and plants therein becomes moderate. And as for the southern lands, the influence in that year in the summer intensifies the heat therein, so it corrupts the mixture of the animal and the plant therein from the intensity of the heat. And as for Jupiter, its influence is like the Sun in some of the seasons, and he does not look to anything of these planets, is more moderate. That season is the air of moderation by the heat and moisture suitable for the bodies of animals and abundance. Or the blowing of the moderate northern winds corresponds to the strengthening of the animals. And such is the saying regarding Venus. As for Mercury, if he accommodates the sun in his year, he transforms from the year to a planet he looks at. If it looks to Saturn, the air of that season is cold and varying. As for the moon, she descends from the time of conjunction to the first quarter moist, and from it to the opposition hot and moist, and from it to the second quarter hot and dry, and from it to the conjunction cold and dry. And that indicates what we have mentioned regarding experimentation and analogy. As for experimentation, because the moon, if she is facing and meeting the sun in some of the seasons, as if the quarters of the year were like the quarters of the month. As for analogy, we say that the evidence regarding the moon is from the time of the conjunction to the first quarter. The moistness dominates over it, and that is a type of this time, excepting the moisture. But it does not have the power to heat the air or to dissolve the moisture, so the air becomes moist. As for the nature of the moon, it is distinct, and when she departs from the sun with 1 degree, the moisture falls, causing coolness, so rains occur. As for from the quarter to the opposition, then the moisture dissolves due to that, because it is great in power, overheating the air. And the evidence remains at the opposition like the light of the sun, and its light remains the entire night. And the earth remains between the 2 luminaries, sun and moon, in the middle of the day and night, as if they were a single day. When the sun sets, its successor rises, and it is the moon, so the air is found to heat, and it heats in this time more. As for from the opposition to the second quarter, it empties the drying and heats the moisture, because the preceding heated things have taken effect in the air, so its influence in this time appears in the beginning of the night, and it is largely hot, increasing, so the dryness becomes great. But due to the decrease of its light every night, its light takes over, for its light weakens, and its rising is at the end of the night, differing from what is above. And likewise the light which is weak does not have power over the movement of the sun. It becomes a cause for the strength of the cold upon the face of the earth, due to what is between the heat and the cold of the consequences. And it is reversed when the moon is looking at Saturn from some of the shapes. As for the sun, she does the likeness of this action as we have related regarding the dimensions of the moon in the month. As for the planets, their influence differs due to their positions from the sun. And that is because the 3 superior planets and their distance regarding conditions are either to be oriental or western, or under the rays of the sun, and its being in the opposition of the sun to its first quartile, and from its first quartile to its second quartile, from its falling with the first opposition of the sun to its nature with heat, and from its opposition to the second quartile, the nature of dryness follows it from its strength, and from its second quartile to the conjunction, the nature of coldness follows it, and from the quartile of the sun to the conjunction, it acquires moisture, and from its conjunction to the first quartile, it dries up. Then that ray for the conjunction to the quartile, its outcome is weak. And also the conditions of the 4 distinct natures follow the sun in the state of retrograde motion, so it heats. Then those conjunctions disappear at the stopping station, so they dry up. And the outcome here necessitates that the retrograde motion is for the 4 humours, or ranks. For this reason, the skilled one in knowing these 4 ranks is in need of the skilled method. As for the attribution in the moon and the experience regarding the second attribute, which is the state of the planets in felicity and misfortune, and in observing the searches. To interpret felicity, sa'ada, and misfortune, nuhusa, we say, the intent of felicity is what suits the human being in his life, and the rectification of his life regarding the physical matters and the psychic matters. As for the physical, it is health and length of life, and beauty, and wealth, and glory, and safety from bodily blights regarding the illness and pain, and poverty and humiliation. And as for the psychic, it is the sciences and ethics and good remembrance. And all of that is felicity. And misfortune is all that opposes us in our lives, and the rectification of our lives regarding illness and pain, and poverty and humiliation, and falling into blights and base morals. And know that excess in every quality is misfortune, and moderation therein is felicity. And that is because life is solely sustained and perfected by the moderate temperament, and excess and negligence lead to the corruption of the temperament. The third search. Indeed, that which is established in philosophy is that the sustenance of all events of the earth leads back to the celestial conjunctions and the astronomical figures. We have known that every excess occurring in this world is only occurring from there, the heavens, and every moderation here is from there. Then they came to know that some of these planets correspond to felicity, and some correspond to misfortune. And indeed the requirement in this second search, the third search. As for Saturn and Mars, they are malefics, because we have clarified that the outcome from the dominance of Saturn is the excessive cold, and from the dominance of Mars is the excessive heat. And the phenomenon of these two qualities, if excessive, results there in the destruction of the animals. For this reason they made them both malefics. Then we say that Saturn is stronger in misfortune than Mars. And that is because Saturn resolves with cold and dry, and the dry contradicts that life is essentially heat and moisture. And the dry is not the heat, for the heat is fitting for life, but the existence of life is by the heat. Thus, Saturn is more severe in misfortune than Mars, or say, Saturn is excessive in cold and Mars is in dry, and the cold is a passive quality and the dry is a passive quality. So Saturn is the complete cold, stronger in misfortune than the source of the complete dry. For the philosophers said regarding wisdom, that the celestial bodies are all good, and there is no evil in the high world of generation and corruption. So how can we reconcile between this rule and between the apparent saying of the astrologers that some of the planets are malefics? We said the answer is from two faces. The first, that the intent of their natures is the preservation of the simple elements, simples, upon their simplicity, and the dominance of the heat and cold necessitates the disruption of the composition and the return to the state of simplicity. So Saturn and Mars are two felictes, sadan, absolute relative to the simples, and two malefics relative to the composites. Thus, the requirement of the natures of Jupiter and Venus is the bringing forth of events and the preservation of composites upon their composition. Thus, they are two malefics relative to the simples and two felicities relative to the composites. Then reflect here on the ruling of the planning in the composition of the planets. For Saturn acts in the management of the simples, and Jupiter in the management of the composites. And since the simple is prior to the composite, it was necessary that Saturn be higher than Jupiter. So glory be to the one under whose wisdom is every subtle thing. The second, that the intent of the wise ones, by their saying there is no evil in the celestial bodies, is that the influence of the sun in those bodies does not accept tearing and corruption and dissolution. And this does not negate the saying of the astrologers that their influence appears in this lower world. So this is the discourse on the planets regarding misfortune. As for the felicities, we say Jupiter and Venus are two felicities, sardan, because life is perfected by heat and moisture. And here are the two guardians of these two qualities. And since the heat is an active quality, and the moisture is a passive quality, and the beneficence of the actor is stronger and better than the beneficence of the receiver passive, therefore Jupiter was in felicity stronger than Venus. And because, for whatever was its specific quality, moderation and the blowing of the moderate northern winds and the nature, and these conditions are agreeable for the bodies of the animals, it was necessary for him to be the great benefic, Sad Akbar. And indeed they made Venus a lesser benefic, Sad Asgar, for the first reason, and for what is in her of the excessive moisture. The second, that she has difference in her states in retrograde and direct motion, and her movement is swift, closer to alteration. The third, that the planets are superior in every chapter, stronger than the inferior ones, because their bodies are larger and their movements in the firmament are slower and their influence is stronger, and because they are closer to existence. And the aspects of the existence of the inferior ones were more widely dispersed and stronger. So these are analogical considerations corresponding to the numerous experiments yielding the trust in them. And the fourth of them, that Jupiter, since he indicates felicity, and the greatest of the human felicities are the states of prophecy and kingship. Since Jupiter indicates the highest of them and what was of the totality of the enduring conditions, strictly we attribute them to Jupiter, not to Venus. So Jupiter was greater in felicity from this aspect, and the fifth of them, that the heat is an active quality and the moisture is a passive quality, and the aid of the active is stronger than the aid of the passive. Thus Jupiter was greater than Venus. Then Saturn came facing Jupiter in the utmost of misfortunes, and Venus facing Mars. And that is because Saturn is the source of cold, and Jupiter is the source of heat. And Mars is the source of dryness, and Venus is the source of moisture. And know that the beneficence is its doing, the good and the happiness and the purity and the rectitude and the beauty of creation and the joy, and the happiness and the good, the virtues, and the misfortune in its totality. Its doing is the injustice and the corruption and the ugliness and the vices. As for the sun, regarding her being in a rank between strength and the influence, she was the utmost of proximity from it, and the utmost of distance from it. And it indicates upon two faces, that she, if she kept safe by her distance, or if she burnt by her proximity to the lands. The southern lands, if she was distant from them very much, the north cooled greatly, and nothing was born therein of plants and animals. Thus they became in the opposition and the conjunction as if they were a single thing. And her proximity to the planets by meeting them, prohibiting them from their influence which they pour upon the animals and plants, from the intensity of the heat, and the likeness of her meeting the 10th house, regarding the preventing which destroys its animals from the intensity of the cold. They claimed that she acts as a benefic regarding the trine and the sextile, resembling these two aspects by the moderate dwelling places. For if what you mentioned requires that she be a benefic, and the people said that she is a malefic in the conjunction, combustion, we said, God the exalted willing, regarding the chapters, because looking has the aspect of the sextile and the trine, and it is not malefic, but rather benefic, and the second of them, that the sun is like the great authority who is in the utmost of proximity to him as a danger, and he who is at the limit of distance is safe from the burning. As for looking, it is like being present in the court. As for the moon, since she is the strongest of the planets in local effect, and receives from the sun the light by which she governs the night and follows the path of the sun in felicity and misfortune. As for Mercury, he is mixed in his nature. He is with the benefic a benefic, and with the malefic a malefic, and it indicates two faces. The first, that the thing which varies in its states requires that its essence does not have a distinct quiddity, but rather its quiddity is by the requirement of the trace. When mixed with the varying influences, its nature varies. We knew that its nature is distinct by the requirement of the trace or the fire, or that when Mercury was with the malefic, its influence was strengthened by that planet. We knew that its nature follows all of the planets. So they said, therefore he mixes the benefic with the benefic, and with the malefic a malefic, because the intent is that he does not have the power for heating nor for cooling. Thus, strictly he does not strengthen the felicity, nor does he act upon the misfortune, except that he creates a gateway for other than himself. And regarding what is strengthened, upon the delay or influence regarding the saying on the rest of the planets. Thus they judge that he is with the benefics a benefic, and with the malefics a malefic, and with the male a male, and with the female a female. They said, if he is alone by himself, he leans towards misery. As for his action regarding the soul, it is the speed of movement and the abundance of changes in the single period from retrograde and direct motion, and eastern and western elongation and proximity and distance. So the cause of the speed of the changes of the air became that. For this reason they said that the star is the air of the winds. And since it is established that he accepts all the conditions from the rest of the planets, and is quickest in turning from one state to another, the interpretation for us regarding the soul was necessitated to speak and write the interpretation of these things to Mercury. The third research, regarding the influence of the planets in felicity and misfortune according to three divisions. One of them is that the felicity of the planet requires a type of felicity for a person from a type and a detail on other than the noble conditions. The second, that it appears from the planet one single influence or one single effect. However, that single effect creates felicity in relation to the thing, and it may be misfortune in relation to the other thing. Specifically, Saturn, if he seizes the mastery over the year, necessitates the excessive cold. Then that excessive cold is misfortune in relation to the cold lands, and felicity regarding the hot lands. And also, if the planet arrives in a position from the sphere, it is for a people in the place of their day, and they are standing in the place of their land. So it is for the people who have the day a happiness, aid upon everything. And it indicates for the people who have the place of the night upon something else of the misfortune. This is what is obtained from the power of the planet, felicity and misfortune in two different times. As for according to the parallels, aspects, what appears from the action of the sun and the planets, if she leans to a side of the regions in some of the times of the year, her action appears specifically in that place. Then, if she leans away from them and parallels another place, the favour of that turns from the first positions and occurs in the second position. And as for according to the variation of the positions relative to the ascendant, the influence of the planets varies according to the difference of their placement from the houses of the aspect regarding their felicity and their misfortune. The reason for what appeared is the knowledge that the research regarding the felicity of the planets and their misfortune is a research into two faces. One of them is the research into their essences and their quiddities, which do not vary. For that which is a benefic by nature is likewise forever, and that which is a malefic by nature is likewise forever. And it was as if the two do not turn. The benefic does not become a malefic by nature, nor vice versa. The second, that the planet which is accidental, of the felicity and misfortune, and this may obtain therein the change. For the human who is known by nature to be good may turn to evil, but his states vary and differ due to wealth widely varying. Thus, here, as for the accidental states which we have mentioned, the malefic turns into a benefic, or each one of the two divisions. Either it is for celestial causes, or it is for earthly causes. So these are four divisions. The first, the malefic, which turns into a benefic due to celestial causes. And that is by one of two matters. One of them is the matters which prevent them from excess in influence, but rather makes them moderate. The second, that it is strong to the state position and its type in its fortune. And consider that in every one of the two malefics, so we say that Saturn possesses the essence of misfortune if he is by day above the earth, an oriental evil regarding the influence. For he indicates upon the acute state, and that is because the nature of the day acts upon the heat intended for moderation, and the orientality acts likewise for the heat. So he is excessively hot, so he is an oriental, and his falling in the day breaks from his cold, so he becomes moderate. And you have known that the meaning of felicity is the attainment of moderation. So strictly, whenever that occurs for him, he turns to the nature of the benefics. And as for their saying, they overcome, knowing that the malefic is accepted in misfortune, how regarding the evil? And its meaning is that if he, the planet, is in some of the fortune dignities, such as a house and exaltation, and bound and face, deacon, his evil is accepted. And I say, regarding the direction of the solution, is that the first is solely felicity, because the effect is broken from the strength of the cold by the orientality, and the being in the day, or being in his line that is broken, is good. So he acts regarding what necessitates that it is his nature. Then, by the cause of that suitable effect, and if the trace is great, felicity has been attained.